Hi, my name is David Mears. This is the second part of a short screencast showing how you can create a simple application in Windows Media Center. Assuming you've watched the first part where I kind of demoed and explained the application that gets created by default when you create a Media Center application. And in this part I'm going to show you how you can modify that application to play BBC radio channels. First thing I'm going to do before I go any further is change my targeted .NET framework to 3.5. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing it because .NET 3.5 has some handy features in it. So I'm going to now the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is create a class that represents a channel, and this will be referenced by the Media Center markup language to find the picture that's going to be displayed and the URL to be used to play the channel and so on. So I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to call it channel. Now the application class that gets created is actually put into a namespace called MCBeeb. So I'm going to put the channel class into the same namespace. I'm going to define three properties. The first one is a string, which is a description. It's the handy .NET 3.5, one of the handy .NET 3.5 features. The URL to be used to play the radio station. A URL to an icon that can be displayed on the screen. And then finally, the image that corresponds to that icon, and it's going to be a Media Center image, and I'm going to call it picture, and I'm going to return a new image which is found from the picture URL. So I've defined my simple channel class. I'm going to make it public so it can be visible outside the assembly. So now I've got my channel. I'm going to actually define the channels that it can be used. So I'm going to go back to the application. If you remember from the first screencast, there's this member here, which is the data source used by the repeater. That was my data. I'm going to create another one called channels. Actually, it's going to be returning an array of channels. It's going to return a new array of channels. Here's the first feature, or second feature I should say. You can have a description, say this is radio 1. It's going to have a picture URL, which is blank for now, and a play URL, which is blank for now as well. This is kind of bugging me, so it's got to be aligned, otherwise it won't compile, of course. So that's the first channel. I'm just going to define a couple of channels. Radio 2. Close off the braces. Put a semicolon there. If this comma is annoying you, I'll delete it, although going back to C times you can actually leave a trailing comma in array initializers and it wouldn't complain. I think it's for automatically generated code to make it easier. But anyway, now I need the actual URL for the picture and for the to play the channel. So I'll fire up Internet Explorer and go to my player. Go to radio stations. We have some handy pictures here. I'm going to go to the property of the picture and pull out the URL to the picture. I've copied that. I'll just show you a copy, and then I'll paste it into the picture here. Picture URL here. Paste. assuming it's going to be the same thing for radio 2. Now if I go back to the radio 1 now, if I click on it and say listen, I'm going to go to this listen in pop-out player, and that starts it playing. You can't hear it, but I can. Not my cup of tea. Okay, so I've copied that URL. Go back to here. And let's just assume that its radio 2 is the same. Actually, I can test it. And I'll close the pop-up. Okay, let's pop it in here and say radio 2. Yeah, that's radio 2. Okay, so we have this array of channels defined now. We also need a method that's going to be invoked when the user clicks on a channel to play it. So I'm going to create that method now. Public void play channel. I'm going to assume that I get a channel as a parameter. And I'm also going to define a private member variable, and it's going to be a web browser type. Just going to go to my notes now because I think I need to import a type for that. Probably Windows Forms, so let's go to project reference. This dialog always seems to take forever to load up. Alright, so W for Windows and system. System Windows Forms, there we go. So now it's offering to import web browser for me, so it knows about it. So there's my web browser. And now what I'm going to do is when someone clicks on the channel, I'm going to say if the web browser is not equal to null, and I want to dispose it. Oops. Which will close it off, close it down. Otherwise, I'm going to say web browser dot navigate to the channels play URL. Okay, why is it complaining about this? Oh yes, of course I forgot to initialize it. I'll just continue on here. There we go. Right. So that's pretty much everything I need on this side of things. I'm going to build that now on the code side of things. What's it complaining about? 991. My double clicking doesn't seem to be working. Okay, I've screwed up my braces by the looks of it. Try rebuilding it now. Okay, it's giving me a it's complaining about this import. Let's try building one final time. Okay, rebuild all succeeded. So now let's go to the markup side of things. I'm going to not actually create any new markup files. I'm just going to use the existing ones that are passed in. So let's go to the menu, markup first. Instead of passing in a string to the repeat item, I'm going to pass in a channel. So instead of accessing my data source, I'm going to access the channels source. Actually, before I do this, sorry, I'm going to build that again. And then I'm going to do my dev install so that it gets put into the cache. Otherwise, I find it when the markup can't find or sees an out-of-date version of the application class, and so it wouldn't have seen the channels property I just defined. So now it's in the global assembly cache. The application instance is in the or class is in the global assembly cache. Everything should work. So I'm going to say it's an application channel. Or channel, sorry, is the source of the data source. That's the array I just defined. And for the repeated item, I'm going to say it's the repeated item, but it's no longer a string. It's actually a channel. And if you remember, a colon is a namespace that references the assembly that contains the channel class. So that's my main thing here. I'm going to make it go horizontal instead of vertical, I think, as well. Hopefully that'll look okay. So now what about my repeated item? I've got to modify the repeated item, so instead of taking a string it takes a channel. So let's go to repeated item. So it's going to be a channel. Oh, sorry, it shouldn't have been there. Instead it was a string, wasn't it? So it was a channel. Its name is, I'm going to say it's channel, and it's required. So when the command gets invoked, we're no longer going to invoke the dialog test. We're going to invoke the play channel method that I just defined, and the parameter is called channel, if I remember correctly. And its description, or the value that's being passed in is the channel that's passed in as a property or as a parameter to the repeat item. So finally, we come down to the button. Now the button needs the image from the channel, so I'm going to pass in a new parameter here, as well as the command parameter. I'm going to pass in the channel. So let's say channel equals the channel. So now I can go to the button. So I said that it had a channel parameter, so that's a colon channel. Now the a namespace isn't actually defined, so I'm going to pull it in from the repeat item. Copy and go back to the button now and paste it in. So there it is. So it's a channel and name equals channel, and it's also going to be required. Channel equals required. Now we want to set the image of the set the picture from the channel onto the image in the button instead of the text. So first of all, I'm going to go down to the content here, and we're going to say, instead of it being a text, it's going to be an image. Let me just check my notes. It doesn't seem to like images in there. It's not image, it's graphic. Let's give it a name, we'll call it icon. And the content is going to come from the channel, and it's going to be the picture property on the channel. And we no longer need this label. I'm just going to comment it out. Control K, Control C. And now, because I've done that, of course, it's going to, this setting of the content and the label won't work anymore. Okay, let's see what happens when I try and build that now. Okay, it's complaining. Okay, it's complaining that the channel is not compatible with a string on the button, and that's let's have a look. Sorry, the string on the repeated item, and that's because I think it's because the channel isn't, the repeat item isn't compiled in the assembly and in the GAC yet. That's a bit of a pain. I don't know if I can get away with ethnic content. I'm just going to comment that out. No, it looks like I can't. Alright, I'm going to comment out the whole body of this user interface for now. Let's try building that again. I suspect, yeah, I'm going to have to comment out the body of the repeat item as well. So again, oops, Control K, Control C to comment that out. Now if I build that built. So I pop that into the assembly cache by saying dev/debug, and then when I've done that, I can press Control Z now to undo my commenting of the repeat items body. Do a build. Still doesn't like it. Okay, it's trying to set still uses text, which is setting to the command's description, which is no use. I could comment out this line, but instead I'm just going to say it's the channel's description. The reason I'm doing that is because the command's description is actually used, if I go to the button now, it's used to set the text for the accessibility, essentially. So it's kind of a good thing to leave there. So anyway, I'm going to build that now. Control Shift B. Let's have a look. C button requires a property called channel. Okay, it's just a typo there. Sorry to all of you who had seen that already and were screaming at me. Okay, now it's complaining about the play channel. Let's have a look and see what's wrong with my play channel. It's got a channel as a parameter. Oh. So it should have been lowercase c for that one. And for the button, let's have a look and see what I've called the property. I did call it channel. Okay, let's go back and build that again. Okay, C button requires a property called channel to function. And I do have channel there. Okay, sorry, it's complaining about the test.mcml. So this is a test class or file that got built or gets generated for you by default. I'm going to exclude that from my project. Okay, now I'm going to rebuild. Okay, I don't know how this happened here. Let's go back to... Right, let's build. You say with confidence. C button requires a property called channel to function, and all of a sudden that's still in test. Okay. Oh, it's still picking it up. Okay, let's add it back in again. Existing item, and it's in the markup. No, it's in the markup. Hold all files. Test. Alright. Now if I go to test, I'm just going to comment out the body. Alright. Still complaining about test. Now I'm puzzled. Clean, rebuild. Alright, let's try deleting test. Test no longer exists. How can it be referencing? Oh, okay. I'm going to go to the resources, which contains a reference to the test. Let's go to files. No, there's no test there. So where is it finding this test from? Okay, I'm going to delete it. Which I thought I'd already done, but obviously I hadn't. Okay, it built. Right. I'm going to plot that into the global assembly cache again, and now we come back to the main one here. I can do Control Z to remove my commenting, rebuild it. Okay, it says that's right, I got rid of text and replaced it with, oh, it's called channel now, I believe. Let's have a look at the repeated item. The property is called channel, so that's why it's complaining. I'll build that now. Okay, now it's built. Okay, it's installed. And I'm going to go to the program library. Go to MCBeeb. Alright, we've got our the sizing is a little bit screwed up there, so let's just quickly look at that. I think it's in the button that the size is set. Yeah, I'm going to take out the minimum and maximum size. Let's see what happens. Actually, maybe I'll just, yeah, let's take that out. Install that again. Here's a handy tip. I'm going to go out of this application. I don't actually have to restart Media Center. I can just go into it again. And there we have BBC Radio 1, BBC Radio 2, and then I'm going to click on 1. Now you're not going to be able to hear anything, unfortunately. Let's see if I can. There we go. I can actually hear it away now. I'm going to press 2. 1 had some raucous music on, and 2 has middle of the road music, as it's supposed to have. Okay, that was my simple explanation of how I modified the built-in application, or the default generated application, to play BBC music. Please feel free to visit my blog. That's at damianblog.com, damianblog.com, and you can leave any comments. Thanks very much. Bye.